and eels. It's a long fly ball going back, and the ball shatters the sky, bringing the ocean itself down into the stadium. Oh, Simpson just broke this dream's reality wide open.
It's a mutiny. The captain thinks the world is around, see? But we all know it's a flat, right?
Of course it's flat. Sure, I know the world is flat.
Well, so do I. Everybody knows that.
Good, good.
Imagine living in the second dimension. Flat minds in a flat world with flat dreams.
Eve is bullshit. They basically stole our minds and enslaved us by showing us a picture of a ball. Said, here's what you live on, it's a ball.
Sir, you've been on the network.
No.
You know how I know? I tried to debunk the flat earth and I failed. That's how most of us get started. We try to debunk the flat earth and we fail.
It's playing everywhere. Tech's trying to shut.
If I say that the world is round and someone else says it's flat, that's worth reporting. But you might also want to report on a bunch of scientific evidence that seems to support the notion that the world is round.
The journalist's obligation when writing a story is to give equal column space to all sides, or half to one of each side. And if someone says the earth is round and someone says the earth is flat, at some point you're going to make a judgment. The earth is flat people is just flat out wrong. Right. I will not be giving them the attention. We're wasting time, and I'm not doing a service to in my role of informing the public.
You know, the powers that be have definitely known what the true physics is since at least then. They've known how to suppress this and keep this out of, the public's view and keep us enslaved into this hideous, explosion-based slave technology that's destroying the world. Free energy already exists. The military's using this stuff. They keep it from us. And, my goal was always to try to get as many people to understand that the so-called thing called free energy actually exists. And then we would get to a point where people would demand that the powers that be release this stuff to us. So it can happen right now. It's not like it's something that's far off or whatever. The technology exists. The military's got it right now, but it's existed since 1892 at least, and probably further back.
The truth. There's connections. We need to look and see different. Think. Could everything be connected? Could the world system be set up to destroy the foundations of God with NASA, with science? Right from the beginning, the foundations of God's Word have been tampered with, have been distorted. Satan is the god of this world, and he's distorting everything with his agencies set up to deceive us. Look at what NASA presents us. CGI, paintings, composites, stitched together. Where are the pictures of the Earth? Why is it that there is only 2 images of the Earth? Where's the HD footage of the spinning Earth? Real pictures, real video. They even admit on their website, these are fakes. These are not real.
The Big Bang Theory is, today, the leading explanation about how the universe began. At its simplest, it talks about the universe as we know it, starting with a small singularity, then inflating over the next 13.8 billion years to the cosmos that we know today. Priest Andrew Pinsent holds advanced degrees in theology from the Pontifical Gregorian University in Rome, as well as a doctorate in particle physics from Oxford. In January 2015, he wrote, "Being both a priest and a former particle physicist at CERN, I am often asked to give talks on faith and science. Quite often, young people ask me the following question: how can you be a priest and believe in the Big Bang? To which I am delighted to respond, we invented it. Or more precisely, priest Georges Lemaitre invented the theory that is today called the Big Bang, and everyone should know about him." The author of the Big Bang theory was none other than the Jesuit-trained priest Georges Lemaitre. On October 28, 2014, Sarah Kerr reported,
Speaking to members of the Pontifical Academy of Science, the Pope said it is possible to believe in both, insisting God was responsible for the Big Bang from which all life evolved.
So, folks, we're having it being told to us now, history being rewritten right here, that a French, Belgium friar priest, Jesuit, named Gervais Lemaitre, or however you say it, Lemaitre, was the founder of the Big Bang theory. Now, excuse me, I thought that the whole science was developed in the Copernicus days because it was breaking away from the church. The Vatican had it wrong. The geocentric, earth-centered theory was wrong. We had to prove them wrong, and now we have MIT scientist, also Jesuit priest, telling us in no uncertain terms that a Jesuit priest developed the Big Bang theory, and it wasn't because of Einstein. Anybody want to go further? Now notice in Wikipedia here, Gervais Lemaitre first noted 1927. Notice they don't say he was Jesuit, or that he was a priest, or that he was affiliated with the Vatican, do they? They don't get to go into that, folks. So the Big Bang theory was created, also the steady state theory that went along with it, that said things were expanding but they remained the same, if that the song remains the same from there. But it was developed by Charles Hubble, and or Edwin Hubble, excuse me, in 1989. He lived to 1953. The Hubble telescope has been named after him. And this little game I play is going into the astronomers and find out what is their relation to the church. He studied at the University of Chicago. Guess who owned the University of Chicago and founded it? The guy's name was Rockefeller. Went to the University of one of the first Rhodes Scholars, Cecil Rhodes. Google Cecil Rhodes, where Bill Clinton went, and you'll find out that's part of the Illuminati. 1970, his dissertation was titled Photographic Investigations of the Faint Nebulae. Isn't that amazing? In 1970, the guy was taking pictures of the far-out universe, but we still don't have a real picture of Earth. And now we have Hubble. Oh, he was in the military, the United States Army, in the 82nd Division. He was a lieutenant colonel. And here we go. He was raised as a Christian. Hubble's arrival at Mount Wilson Observatory in 1919. Now, this is right around when they're creating the Federal Reserve. This is when they made the Paris Treaty that divided up after World War I. 1919 was a big year. They created get this, folks, the Hooker telescope was the world's largest at the time. And I didn't get into it, but I could bet to tell you that the Vatican was a partner in this, in the Hooker telescope. And then here we are over here, just to further this about the Vatican and how they've been completely all over astronomy, sending out their scientists all over the world, to China, to India, United States, everywhere, to preach the gospel of heliocentrism, while playing the opposite hand, saying, oh no, we're not into science at all, we're just into God co-creating. What a bunch of crap. So the Vatican, the largest and longest owners of telescope observatories, including the new named Lucifer. That's right, the Vatican they changed the name of Lucifer, but Lucifer stood for large binocular telescope, near-infrared utility and camera, and integral field unit for extragalactic research. This is the Vatican, folks. The Vatican has controlled the information from space since the very inception. Here we see many popes with telescopes dedicated in 1993. The VAT utilizes some of the most advanced and innovative optics, electronics, and mechanics available, once again positioning the Vatican at the forefront of astronomy. The observatory is one of the oldest astronomical institutes in the world. Papal interest in astronomy can be traced back to Pope Gregory XIII, who had the Tower of Winds built in the Vatican in 1758, called on Jesuit astronomers and mathematicians to study scientific data involved in the reform of the calendar, the Gregorian calendar, which occurred in 1582. From that time, with a degree of continuity, the Holy See manifested an interest and support for astronomical research. These traditions of the observatory reached their climax in the mid-19th century with research conducted by famous Jesuit Father Angelo Secchi, the first to classify stars according to their spectra. Now we know that's not true. We got an MIT professor admitting that one of his boys created the Big Bang in 1929. And further, we can read about how they used the ancient burial grounds to put in their Lucifer site, which upset the Indians greatly. And here's a picture of that Lucifer telescope they had on there. Again, they set these things back up in the 16th century, folks. And here's how they just play with us. So it wasn't until 1822 the Congregation of the Holy Office removed the prohibition of the publication of books treating the Earth's motion in accordance with modern astronomy. Oh, how nice of them. See, they're playing both sides. And then they pardoned Galileo in 1992. The Vatican said it was wrong. In 1979, set up a Galileo study group. Now think about this. They've had astronomers for hundreds of years. They have all the telescopes. They've known more about space than any of us. And in 1992, we're being told, after being a Galileo group was set up in 1979, that they're pardoning Galileo, and that they're saying that the desire was consecrated in the Constitution by the Pope in 1981 of a commission to coordinate the research of theologians, scientists, and historians, which would help to further clarify the events which occurred between Galileo and the Church, and more generally the Ptolemaic Copernican astronomy of the 16th and centuries in which the Galileo affair is situated. The commission consisted of 4 working groups. I mean, as co-director of the Working Group for Science Epistemology, George Cohn, Society of Jesuits, Society of Jesus, director of the Vatican Observatory, initiated a series of research publications entitled Study Galilean. So it would seem that the Vatican has held the most knowledge of space for over 3 centuries with all their observatories. They are the only one in modern era beginning to examine the teachings of those scientists who changed the course of history and refuted the Roman Catholic Church. Does this make any sense to anyone? So let's move on to the gravity and what the word gravity means. This is from around 1500s. The word gravity means weight. Folks, it's also the word grave. Gravity means weight. Now, would it surprise you to know that in Newton's third law of gravity, or in any of his works, he fails to describe gravity as being weight and using the word weight? Gravity is buoyancy and density. It is not size that matters. We don't have a working model on Earth. Lake Erie, one of the largest lakes in the world, has no tides from gravitational pull of the moon. The rivers, the ponds, none of them do. And we're being told it's only because the Earth is so big and size matters that it's not scalable down. This is ridiculous. This is the story they've told us. It is not how big a size is and how dense it is. It's how buoyant and how dense it is, as we'll get into now.
You have no idea. Okay, next question.
What is gravity?
You have no idea. Okay, next question.
You have no idea.
Wow. No, here's the difference. We can describe gravity. Okay. We can say what it does to other things. We can measure it, predict with it. But when you start asking, like, what it is, I don't know.
The flat earth model.
So Einstein's general theory of relativity theory, he proposed that something like the mathematicians call a field comes in physical contact with the skin of the moon. The so-called gravity well can be likened to a curved bowl of sorts. The moon rolls around very much like a ball rolls around roulette. His curved field, no one since the days of Newton ever discovered that field as a concept. Concepts have no power or authority to affect matter, yet Einstein uses the word field as a physical object to restrain the moon. No one in the mathematical establishment ever questioned such hogwash. Unfortunately for Einstein and his mathematical colleagues, a field, whether gravitational, magnetic, or electric, is an abstract concept. Does it make any sense to say that your dog is tied to the pole because he is physically bound by love, or by information, or by energy? A genuine physicist must propose a physical object as a mediator, otherwise his explanation is irrational. All causes in physics had better have a physical mediator. Okay? Einstein also created this fifth element called time, which is a completely man-made construct, and applied that to the cosmological universe, as in the ability to bend light. But if you think about bending light, he says, is a constant. The speed of light is a constant. Yet if light were to bend, you can look at this picture here, you would have speeds slowing and increasing. Again, if light is constant, how can light bend? Okay? It just doesn't make any sense.
What responsibility do you think members of the media have to portray science correctly?
Yeah, I think the media has to sort of come out of this ethos that I think was in principle a good one, but it doesn't really apply in science. The ethos was whatever story you give, you have to give the opposing view, and then you could be viewed as balanced. In the clip that you showed of the president, you don't talk about the spherical Earth with NASA in it and then say, oh, now let's give equal time to the flat earthers. Plus, science is not there for you to cherry pick.
So now let's get into gravity a little more, and I want to get into this piece. A friend of mine, Bruce at the geocentricgnostic.com, did a very fine presentation, which we'll get into here. But the basis of all scientism is fraud. Fraud vitiates everything. It can be presumed when consideration is woefully and shockingly inadequate, can be rebutted by evidence, makes a contract voidable. Party must act timelessly upon discovering it. This is how we can take down the biggest of the big, NASA or nasty. All right, so on gravity, what we want to look at is this piece that the Geocentric Gnostic did. Let's have a little talk about gravity. All right, so let's get into this. When we think of gravity, the picture of Isaac Newton and the fall of the tree is what everybody's been mind programmed to believe in. However, Newton was the grand master of the secretive priory of Sion. The priory of Sion was dedicated to the preservation of the satanic Moravian bloodline that was an early forerunner to the Rothschild-Khazarian mafia. All right, and all those who think that it's the Jews that are behind this, please Google Hof-Juden Court Jew or Court Hof-Juden Jew, and you will discover who their alliance is, who are their allegiance to is, and who they are ruled by. All right, so Newton's Principia, which Gravity's book was taken from, or one of his writings. In 1723, the Jesuits were the real hidden hand behind the final edition of his book. Return specifically to Newton once more about seeing an apple fall from a tree. He was in deep meditation on the nature of gravity sometime in the summer of, you ready for this year, folks? 1666. It was a collection of works found posthumously in Newton's library. So Newton didn't even back it. They found it and took it and interpreted it as they will. And it's still a theory, folks. Gravity is still a theory. We find Newton's occult roots, much like NASA's progenitors, Crowley, Jack Parsons, L. Ron Hubbard, Walter Disney, Arthur C. Clarke, the fiction writer who created Zero G. Remember the plane, the Zero G, in the book Islands in the Sky? Why did the apple fall from the tree? Because it was more dense than the air around it. Conversely, if we let a balloon with helium go, it rises because it is less dense than the air around it. It's so simple, folks. It's density and buoyancy. Remember the same awesome power of gravity that holds the oceans to the earth like a Velcro as it spins 1,000 miles per hour? Somehow it permits birds and insects to fly around as if it didn't exist at all. Another example is if you're up in a helicopter, shouldn't the earth be rotating around and you land at a different place if you're just hovering? They've got a story for that one too. That's why astronauts train in weightlessness in deep swimming pools. It's because of buoyancy. The key word here is buoyancy. This is from Wiki. For this reason, an object whose density is greater than that of the fluid in which it is submerged tends to sink. If the object is either less dense than the liquid or is shaped appropriately, as in a boat, the force can keep the object afloat. This is also has to do with air and gas density, air buoyancy. A balloon is suspended in the air and a jellyfish is suspended in water for the same reason. Each is buoyed upward by a force equal to the weight of the fluid that would occupy its volume. When that buoyant force equals its own weight, it neither rises nor falls. In one case, the displaced fluid is air. In the other case, the fluid is water. Objects in water are buoyed up because their pressure acting up against the bottom of the object exceeds the pressure acting down against the top. Can we say weight? Likewise, air pressure acting up against an object in air is greater than the pressure above pushing down. The buoyancy in both cases is equal to the weight of the fluid displaced. Archimedes' principle holds for air just as it does for water. These are the states of matter, folks. It's all elementary, simple, and elegant. Solid, liquid, and gas. Now look at the shapes. It's not a coincidence that a submarine and an airship balloon looked the exact same. Buoyancy and density, not size and matter. Okay? They've lied to us. It's all been a great lie. So here more, physicists in Penn State University state unequivocally that gravity depends on mass and distance and nothing else. Here goes the programming, folks. This is the universities. Penn State University, another Jesuit clone institution there, selling the story to all the kids that pay all their tens of thousands of dollars and get in massive debt just to be lied to. That being said, one has to infer that the water at the bottom of the ocean has more gravitational pull exerted on it than the water at the top since it's closer to the mass of the earth. The gravity on the surface would have to be the same or more than gravity at the bottom of the ocean in order to keep the oceans from flying off into space. But wait a minute, if the earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, the centrifugal force would actually make the water surface heavier as you get closer to it, right? Spinning from the center, weight is transferred to the outside. Yet, this is from them, folks, and notice the spinning ball doesn't hold water. In the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration quotes this gem, quote, the effect of centrifugal force, it is this little-known aspect of the moon's orbital motion, which was responsible for one of the two force components creating the tides. As the Earth and the moon whirled around this common center of mass, the centrifugal force produced is always directed away from the center of revolution. The surface of the oceans would bear the brunt of the weight since the centrifugal force is trying to spin the water away from its axis. But according to gravity depends on mass and distance and nothing else. The gravitational pull at the surface has to be less because it's further from the center of the mass. But somehow the magical properties of gravity change it to defy its own definition, folks. Here you can see the Earth mass, the pressure increases, you have less gravity as it goes away. So you have weight increasing as it goes down, but you have less gravity as it goes up. Okay, you can see another example right here. Centrifugal force is pushing up. What is pushing the pressure down? This is so elementary. It is so basic. It's very hard for people to conceptualize how great the lie is. They took something very simple and very elegant and made it into a mathematical formula, the math magicians, as we should call them, because they make no sense at all. But they've got us all fooled. Until now.
It's the natural order of things, and there's no need for gravity to explain it. If you take a beach ball filled with air, for example, and try to hold it underwater, you'll notice that it's difficult to hold it underwater, and it gets more and more difficult the deeper you get. When you let go of the ball, it will race to the surface of the water. So I suppose we should believe that the beach ball is somehow an anti-gravity device. It's beneath the water with all that pressure above it, plus all the gravity in quotes, gravity pushing down on it, the beach ball should remain underwater according to the theory of gravity. However, it invariably races to the top because it's simply acting in accordance with the natural laws of buoyancy or density. At any rate, on the flat Earth, gravity is not necessary. Gravity was a theory dreamed up to explain why we're not flung from the surface of the Earth at 1,000 miles per hour. Since our world is demonstrably not spinning, then we don't need gravity in our model. What goes up must come down is a law of physics. Gravity is a theory necessary only in the globe model. In the flat Earth model, what goes up must come down is explained sufficiently by the simple laws of density and buoyancy. Lighter, less dense objects find their way up, while heavier, denser objects find their way down.
Plus, science is not there for you to cherry pick.
And for the paramount importance of critical thinkers, Bruce writes, are there any natural occurring phenomena or even laboratory experiments that show how water can stick to the outside of a spherical object? The answer is a predictable no. At this point in time, there are no scientific proofs that water behaves in any other manner than just the way you experience it, flat. Water always flows to seek its own level. The only example furnished for this gravitational conundrum is the Earth itself, of which no authentic photo or video exists to verify its existence. In other words, the only example of this magical mathematical made-up state of water is only experienced on the planetary scale of Earth, leaving no way for you and I to hold it to scrutiny. And that, my friends, is one hell of a con job by our Freemason Jesuit friends at NASA. And then they go on to, this Neil deGrasse Tyson goes on to describe the Earth as originally being oblique, and now he's saying it's pear-shaped as the flat Earth movement is proving the longitudinal lateral lines in the Earth don't make sense. And, here's another image taken, doesn't show it oblique, doesn't show it spheroid. I mean, the lies are massive if you just get into this stuff. And then they've got the tidal bulge. I mean, listen to this one, folks. Here we are, 130 miles in space in the ISS space station, and they're telling us that the moon being 238,000 miles away, where they can walk in space at 130 miles away from Earth, the moon's gravity, 1/4 the size and 1/6 the pull of the Earth, is able to tidal bulge our Earth's oceans up and down twice a day in moon tides? And on its back, spinning at 1,000 miles an hour with water going out, it's moving the oceans up and down, and on the backside there's even more gravitational pull because it's on its tilt, on its 23.5-degree tilt. So that means more gravity. Now they walk in the moon at 130, or walk in space at 130 miles up in the space station where they're free of where they're at microgravity, free of most gravity. Yet we're to believe that the moon's gravity is overtaking the Earth's gravity to pull our oceans up and down twice a day while we're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, while it's laying on its back at 23.5 degrees, holding the water in while the water is forced out due to the spin. Does this make sense to anyone with a brain?
Wow. No, here's the difference. We can describe gravity. We can say what it does to other things. We can measure it, predict with it. But when you start asking, what it is, I don't know.
The flat Earth model is your hair, and then take that statically charged balloon near a running tap with water. The water will bend. This proves that our tides could indeed be caused by the moon's electromagnetic field or possibly a static electric charge, but not a gravity field. Indeed, if the moon were close enough to pull on our oceans with its measly gravity, the much greater Earth gravity should have pulled the moon into our world a long time ago. All of the heavenly bodies are orbiting the magnetic center of the known universe, which is fixed at our North Pole, the magnetic center. Since we live on a flat Earth, a compass needle will always be attracted to the center of the world, not the top of the globe. This attraction to the center is apparent even when in the southern hemisphere. So the heavenly celestial bodies are orbiting us, and we're stationary. This means there's some type of force causing these bodies to be weightless and orbit us. I think the ancient builders were probably aware of this principle, and it explains how they were able to build structures such as the pyramids.
Einstein was an idiot. He was wrong about everything. If anybody believes Einstein is correct, they need to watch Einstein's Idiots on YouTube, the entire series by Bill Gates. Then I would read his website, youstupidrelativists.com. And then I would go read the book called The Manufacture and Sale of St. Einstein, which is 2,200 pages demolishing this myth called Einstein. It talks from the very beginning how they set up this shill called Einstein to be the great genius, the nutty professor, the quack, you know, the idiot with a massive blackboard full of equations that can, if he could just figure out that one last little part of an equation, you know, he'll have the key to the freaking universe. So, I mean, it's disgusting. I mean, the level of science right now is really the pit of ignorance.
Researcher and author Anthony Patch states, quote, "In short, the accurate model of the mechanisms governing the functioning of our known universe is that of electromagnetism, not gravity. What is mistaken for and therefore labeled as gravity are in fact, and this has been thoroughly peer-reviewed, magnetic lines of force and the actions of accelerated charged particles moving at various velocities. Additionally, these same electromagnetic forces act in identical fashion, whether one is measuring actions taking place between particles at the quantum level or on a planetary scale. What has been detected by LIGO and other similar experiments preceding it are in fact magnetic lines of force and the movements and actions of accelerated charged particles, such as electrons and protons, among many others."
Indeed, I believe that Nikola Tesla was aware of this force, and so he was able to invent free wireless energy and wireless communications, but more importantly, wireless energy, well before the internet was even close to being theorized. So even newfangled zero-point energy fields, which are being researched by very fringe scientists, seems to be akin to this electromagnetic force, which is causing these celestial bodies to orbit us.
If you look at their mathematics of gravity, it says that, you know, the electrostatic force is 10 to the 37th stronger than the so-called gravitational force. And if you look at 10 with 37 zeros behind it, there's no human that can possibly even imagine what that looks like. I mean, it's beyond human comprehension. So they, you know, these mathematicians love to throw around numbers like this, but they're essentially meaningless. But according to their own screwed up, wrong mathematics, essentially gravity is non-existent with a 10 to the 37th difference, that alone. But this is the problem. This idea of gravitation, which was created by Newton, invented by him, has been extrapolated to the furthest reaches of the solar system and the galaxies and all that. And it's created a huge list of non-existent entities, things like dark energy, dark matter, nuclear furnace stars, gravitational collapse for star formation. I could go on and on. There's dozens of theories based on this false concept of gravity. Black holes. Yes, exactly. I forgot that one. I mean, all these things don't even exist, yet they're part of the mathematics created by Newton and extrapolated to the furthest reaches of the universe. So, I mean, this is the biggest problem with academic science, is that it removed the creator from creation. How can you have a creation without a creator? There is universal mind behind all of this, and that is the impetus for all of it. Like most of their big projects, these huge megalithic projects are designed to be dead ends. They'll go nowhere. Nothing will ever come out of CERN. There's no such thing as a Higgs boson particle. This is all just 100% bull.
Things. We lied about everything. None of it was true. I really don't think people realize how deep the lie goes.
Space, the final frontier.
Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement.
The Vector, NASA's official logo. If you've ever looked at NASA's official logo, both their official insignia and their official seal, you'll see that the most prominent object in the seal is a red swooshing object. They call that the chevron or the vector. If you ask NASA's Public Affairs Office, this symbology is featured so heavily in their insignia and seal, they'll give you what really amounts to the standard facile cover story for the unilluminated. They'll tell you that that is a representation of a hypersonic wing design from the 1950s, which was the time the logo was created. Not exactly the case. Someone might want to ask the Russian Federal Space Agency, Roscosmos, that was formed in 1992, why they chose that same logo. And while you're at it, you can go ask the Chinese, who formed their space agency in 1996, why in the world they're using a hypersonic wing design from the 1950s as their official logo. Then you can ask the Japanese, the South Koreans, Taiwanese, Malaysia, Mexico, Iran, all of these countries, even Bulgaria. They all utilize the vector symbology in their space agency logos for their national space agencies. It gets even deeper. You can go look at the individual manned program patches for NASA. The Mercury program, for example, a blatant use of covert symbology. In every logo dealing with the Mercury program, you'll see what looks like a number 7 in their logo. And again, NASA's official story is that they put this number 7 there so that they could pay homage to the original 7 Mercury astronauts. Kind of forgetting the fact that only 6 Mercury astronauts actually flew into space, because number 7 never did. Deke Slayton had a heart problem, so he didn't get to go up. So there were only 6 Mercury astronauts. Yet there's a 7 in every single logo. That's in the official mission or official program insignia for Mercury, as well as the 6 individual mission patches carry this logo. And it carries on to the Space Shuttle program. If you look at the Apollo logo has a big letter A in it. At least that's what they want you to believe, but it's not. Again, that's just a simple way of explaining away the inclusion of this vector symbology in the logo. If you go to the Space Shuttle program, the original Space Shuttle STS program patch is a triangular patch that, again, hides the use of the chevronic vector symbology. And that also goes for many of the STS-specific mission patches. Every single one of the International Space Station expedition patches carry the vector symbology. The Russian Mir space station used the vector symbology. That was their official logo. And you can even go deeper and look at military-industrial complex companies. Look at the logo on a company like Lockheed Martin, 2 vectors. The X-Prize logo, Ames Research Labs, U.S. Space Command. When you get into the military realm, the United States Space Command, their official logo is the vector symbol. And when you look at the military's individual space-specific programs, all of them deal with vector symbology in their official insignias. And the question really becomes, who or what are these people paying homage to? And the truth, quite frankly, is out of this world.
And it's obvious, that there were cultures that had this, and this is nothing new, If you look at the megalithic structures around the planet, there's no question that there was a higher tech civilization about 13,000 years ago that got wiped out. They were way, way, way beyond us. We can't do any of the stuff that they're doing. And the reason being is that they worked with nature, and we're not. Because look at the beauty of their creations. I mean, have you seen all these megalithic structures around the planet?
Was about 6 months ago when we watched some videos and we knew we'd been fooled. We're the center of the universe. Yeah, we don't move, it circles us. The flat earth. We don't live on a spinning ball. We wanna know, have you ever seen a curve? We wanna know, have you ever seen a curve? When you're looking out across the earth, yeah, we already know that you haven't seen a curve. We already know that you'll never see a curve. 'Cause we got proof it's a flat earth.
Aristotle, Copernicus, Newton, Einstein, and the rest. Even Aristophanes was wrong. Now you'll hear this amazing song.
They don't have a shred of proof, 'cause the earth is still and just don't move. Horizons at eye level and flat. Stars show no stellar parallax. Michelson, Morley, Sagdat, and Gale. The famous series experiment failed. The earth is the center of the universe. Bury the truth and the things get worse. NASA Neely takes the lead. Bill, that science guy, shares his creed. Groaning's less a magic crew. Be sure they're Satan's children too.
Jesuits and Masons rule. They push agenda, make us tools. They use Mythbusters on TV to push the evil reality.
Yeah. Tesla's energy was new, then World War I and World War II. And what did Apfelberg do? Toxic first and then on to Antarctic chasing Nazi troops with the ships and planes and Cascadoos. And what did they find? We don't know. Some say German, some say snow. Some say that they reached the wall of a glass dome that's way too tall. But even though many of us are needy, they blocked us all with the Antarctic Treaty.
Back to Project Paperclip. NASA's Nazi scientists. UFOs in Area 51. Where all the secret tests are done.
Yeah. They started Project Fishbowl. They try to make a great big hole in the firmament that's way up high. Planes and bombs, they try and try. False flags, pretend terrorists, or actors that just don't exist. And fake Cold Wars and nuclear woes. TV tells us how it goes. Duck and cover, take your little pill. NASA's proven exactly nil. No Russia-US space race. Debunkers make too good of a case. How come I can see way past the curve? Eh? I mean way past. Incoming asteroids, could it be Earth? We'd be destroyed, we'd be destroyed. One big sun flare, that's all she wrote. We'd be destroyed, we'd be destroyed. Clinton and Obama, they just both went on Jimmy Kimmel's late night TV show. They mention secret files and make a note. The flat earth changed, aliens disclosed. Yeah. Now aliens will have to wait. Sphere versus flat debate. The more of us who know the earth isn't round will make this house of cards fall down. Careful what you wish for, friend. The flat earth, the real is not the end. This system, it just has to crash. New world order from the ass. The next step of the evil plan is to make you take the mark in your head or your hand. I know that it's a real low blow. They got the money in your mind and now they want your soul. Big Bang, random life everywhere, evolution. Where's God? is God. Aristotle, Copernicus, Newton, Einstein, and the rest. Even Aristophanes was wrong. Now you've heard this amazing song.
It's a long fly ball going back, and the ball shatters the sky, bringing the ocean itself down into the stadium.
We wanna know, have you ever seen a curve? We wanna know, have you ever seen a curve? When you're looking out across the listen up and don't you know the sun is warm and the moon is cold. Come on, it's been that way for all our time. We're the center of the universe. Yeah, we don't move.
It's flat. That's worth reporting. But you might also want to report on a bunch of scientific evidence that seems to support the notion that the world is round.
The journalist's obligation when writing a story is to give equal column space to all sides, or half to one of each side. And if someone says the Earth is round and someone says the Earth is flat, at some point you're going to make a judgment. The Earth is flat, people, is just flat out wrong. I will not be giving them the attention. We're wasting time, and I'm not doing a service in my role of informing the public.
You know, the powers that be have definitely known what the true physics is since at least then. They've known how to suppress this and keep this out of, the public's view and keep us enslaved into this hideous, explosion-based slave technology that's destroying the world. Free energy already exists. The military's using this stuff. They keep it from us. And, my goal was always to try to get as many people to understand that the so-called thing called free energy actually exists. And then we would get to a point where people would demand that the powers that be release this stuff to us. So it can happen right now. It's not like it's something that's far off or whatever. The technology exists. The military's got it right now, but it's existed since 1892 at least, and probably further back.
The truth. There's connections. We need to look and see different. Think. Could everything be connected? Could the world system be set up to destroy the foundations of God with NASA? With science? Right from the beginning, the foundations of God's Word have been tampered with, have been distorted. Satan is the god of this world, and he's distorting everything with his agencies set up to deceive us. Look at what NASA presents us. CGI, paintings, compasses, stitched together. Where are the pictures of the Earth? Why is it that there is only 2 images of the Earth? Where's the HD footage of the spinning Earth? Real.
Have a ball. Said here's what you live on, it's a ball.
Sir, have you been on the network?
No.
You know how I know? I tried to debunk the flat Earth and I failed. That's how most of us get started. We try to debunk the flat Earth and we fail.
It's playing everywhere. Tech's trying to shut.
If I say that the world is round and someone else says
deals. It's a long fly ball going back, and the ball shatters the sky, bringing the ocean itself down into the stadium. Oh, Simpson just broke this dream's reality wide open.
It's a mutiny. The captain thinks the world is around, see? But we all know it's a flat, right?
Of course it's flat. Sure, I know the world is flat.
Well, so do I. Everybody knows that.
Good, good.
Imagine living in the second dimension. Flat minds in a flat world with flat dreams.
Eve is bullshit. They basically stole our minds and enslaved us by showing us a picture.